Alright, so we'll see what this does. Basically, it's going to spawn you at the origin, and the reset will move you to the right spot, supposedly. Not the best, but, well, whatever. What did we change that's requiring such a rebuild? Just things, I guess. Maybe it was changing the read settings on some of those files. Alright, so if we boot in here, we should be able to go into our multiplayer sublevel, or collection sublevel. It actually spawned a critter. Alright, so what we want to do is Alright, so we'll introduce even more stupid temporary hacks, which are going to be probably permanent to our mission or spawn creation stuff, because that's a really great idea. Because we don't want to spawn a bitey under the level in the goddamn UI level. Must be checking file modified times. And that's why when I checked it out I had to rebuild things. That's stupid, it shouldn't do that. File hashes should be built in, right? Though maybe that would increase loading times. What? Why is spawn player true? Spawner is null pointer. Alright. It's not the empty level, it needs to be... Oh man. This is going to come out here, and the empty level is going to be LVUI01. The current level is LVUI01. Alright, so this is what we need to do. I just had my if checks wrong. So I think this should fix it. I just had the wrong if check on there. I mean, the real solution would be to change the spawning stuff so it's not just a pile of trash. But why fix what is broken when you can just ignore it? I don't know if that's a good motive. What are you talking about? Ah, there's a problem here. Don't worry about it. How come this one didn't have a frickin' spawn point? Like, is it the arena level? Did that not get changed and saved or something? Unload sub-level, SL multiplayer 01. You needed the ambient upset back. It's true. Thank you for subscribing, Karakan. It was very much appreciated. And it's absolutely necessary to have those emotes. Alright, so what we want is to snap the camera. So set up for stage, reset stage data, reset blah, destroy all bots, let's see, set up shader variables, transition to camera, get camera for type. If stage needs reset, if reset level is true, reset stage, destroy balls, net reset players, snap camera is true. Where do we load the sublevels? So I think it's more that the pre-stage screen needs to be fixed for the camera than anything else. I could also change the camera so that if you move it somewhere else that far away, it just goes ahead and snaps to it as opposed to transitioning, but I'd rather not throw that on there. So I think what we have for now is fine, so I want to jump into a multiplayer game and see what that does. If it's still got the warnings and all the rest of that crap. So let's load into a multiplayer game. So it looks like the level's not loaded properly. Fucking bastard. I guess we should always be snapping the camera. That's one way to deal with this. So because we made this a sub-level that's always loaded, it's actually not... It's not waiting for the sub-level to load before it does the thing. Like, why is that? It's initially visible, initially loaded, but begin play is getting called before all the objects are in here for the player controller, at least. Should we wait a frame? It's a risky proposition to wait a frame. So why, when we load into the level using these other... Because, like, we do multiplayer here... Why is it acting differently than if we actually have the level loaded? What? Wait, what? I thought we just tried this and we got screwed for our initial camera setup. So let's try loading a different map. Just having an object in a sublevel messes it up. That's really... That's ridiculous. So if the object is in a sublevel that's initially loaded, and you're in the editor, it has a different way of handling loading if you transition to the map that the editor doesn't have open. Because it's acting like it's not actually loading in the multiplayer sublevel until after. Doesn't have anything to do with missions. And what's actually resetting us is probably us falling through the floor or some shit like that. What the fuck? It should be consistent, but it's not consistent. So it's that, let me just look it up. Let's see if it's a static sublevel, if it loads at the right time. Because if it's initially visible... Oh geez, nice job crashing and real nice of you. I mean, if I have to go change all the loading code just to do this, that's really annoying. Let's check if those sublevels are actually set. Alright, so we do begin play. If this is a static sublevel, it doesn't have to replicate. It's still screwed. Damn. That has some big fucking implications of sublevels. That they're not loaded the way you think they're loaded, and stuff's just not going to be available. God damn. Well, what I could do is I could move the spawn points outside of these things. And have at least the spawn points be available so the players can spawn in. I think I'm going to have to do that. Well, everything else can be in there except for the player spawn points. Those have to be in the master. Without a big overhaul, that's what I have to do. I might have to fix that level crash that we're experiencing. Doesn't look like it's having trouble on loading of levels. Or unloading levels where things are there. Alright. Why are we having that whole hitch thing at the beginning of the level? It's like it's trying to load the sub-level in there, and it is having problems with actually loading the multiplayer sub-level. If we go back and load this again, is it still going to have that hitch? Didn't look like it. Kinda did look like it had a hitch. Maybe it's an editor-only hitch. Why don't we close the editor and reopen it? Let's see if it still does that thing. Because we saw that before with hitches and sublevels, but it didn't look like it happened in shipping builds. And we checked the box to make initially loaded, but not initially visible. And that made it so it loaded the sublevel at the beginning. And that seemed to work just fine. Because I thought the hitch was us like actually falling through the level and getting reset, and it doesn't appear to be the case. Well, I need to know if that hitch happens in shipping build. Because if that's true, then we need to do something else. Alright, well, I will be back in a moment. Yeah, so basically, if there's a hitch with sublevels with the loading with this guy, like, why in the hell would that be? Like, the only thing we've got here is the arena level, which is this server initialized match, and it's going to call if not load multiplayer sublevel. Like, it's got to have a valid mission, and the current stage says don't load the multiplayer sublevel, it'll unload it. So there's nothing in here that, you know, touches any of this. So it's just having a sublevel itself causes like a couple frame delay in the editor for loading your multiplayer match. Like, that seems so wrong. Like, you would expect the level to load and then all sublevels have to load that are supposed to be there and initially visible. Yeah, so it looks like people are working around this by setting events inside of sublevels which trigger stuff and all sorts of shit. It's not a simple workaround. It is like, it's not. You have to change fucking everything about how everything works. Like, if you assume the level is loaded, then there's a lot of assumptions. A lot of things go grab actors and everything else. So pretty much like literally everything in the game has to change, or could have bugs and crap like that. And it's just like, That's actually a pretty big deal. So let's see if it does in a shipping build. So it doesn't do it in a shipping build. That's the other thing. That's the other thing that it just really pisses me off sometimes. Is when shipping builds have this sort of difference. It's not okay. Because especially stuff like, Adam's not going to test a shipping build. He has never tested a shipping build. So, it's unreasonable to think he will. That's just frustrating. Why would loading sublevels be different in the editor? There's got to be something there where it's unloading and then loading and doing something odd. Maybe I shouldn't take out my frustrations on woodland critters, but it just seems like the right thing to do. Alright, so it doesn't happen in a shipping build. Good. Fuck. I think I need to set all these sub-levels for these guys to... I mean, probably the other thing is, in a shipping build, it doesn't even have that, like, spawn-in issue. So... it's probably an editor-only thing. Editor's really good at crashing when you edit some of those sub-level objects, isn't it? It's probably why it has that hitch and some other crap. Let's make sure these multiplayers are set to static. They should be set to static because it'll prevent the Should they be set to static? Let me think. I mean, it's basically these actors are not affected by replication. Honestly, they shouldn't be static because we might add something that does need to be replicated in the level. So let's go back and uncheck this just because we may not have it. Yeah. I mean, it's an assertion. It's basically saying if get cache level collection is this, then set cache level collection null pointer, remove this level. Yeah, so I think pretty much what I'm going to do for this crash is I'm going to see if I can just comment out this assert and see if that works. Because if it's just like a shitty assert in here that doesn't need a fire, then let's just ignore it. I'm okay to live with the spawn points being a little screwy, because that's pretty simple. Just always grab the last spawn point and things like that. But having sub-levels do really weird shit, it's just... It's whenever that stuff starts happening, it's just... Because inside of game engines, usually you build a box, which inside of this box, everything does exactly what you want it to at all times. And when you start having to incorporate things that introduce instability, all of a sudden the safe box becomes a very unsafe box. And if this thing hitches every single time, like we hit play, like if you're on a larger team, you would go fix that in the engine because there's no way to tell if it's a problem or not. It's like, is it because there's a performance problem with the game, or is it because sublevels always do this, or, you know, what the fuck? It may also be that later versions of Unreal solve this bug, because we are like half a year out of date, so there's potential for that. Oh man, what is this? I modified the wrong function. This looks like somebody just copy pasted this assert. Like, sanity check level isn't already in the collection. Like, this just looks like a bad assert, to be honest. Because removing a level is like, yeah, remove the level. Yeah, that's fine. What was... I opened up something that said something about level collection. We might be able to just early out of this then just be like, oh, well, cache level collection is equal to this level? This is in the collection. If the level collection exists on the level... Yeah, this seems like it's a bad assert. Well, whatever, we'll see if some horrible undefined behavior starts happening inside of our editor.